today's detective story, you're going to hear about one dogged detective's search for a killer. Give it up for Mr. Smallwood. That was my husband, Chris. And early on when we first got married, we both really loved this certain series of detective books. And whenever we would get out a new one, he would always do what I called the mouth trumpet, which is what that was. Anyways, yes, today you get to read a really interesting, to me, I think, detective story. Technically, this assignment, 7th grade, is for today and tomorrow. So you do not have to finish the story today, but I think it's really interesting and you might want to. One of the things I love about mysteries like this is sort of logic and deduction, and how as you read the story, you're invited to put the pieces together yourself. So I wonder, as you read, who do you initially think is the culprit, and at what point does that change, and what facts do you use as it's changing? The other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that in this unit, we are always thinking about families, family relationships, and in particular, how those relationships are being exposed in the way that the author tells the story. So do think about that as you read. And then the other thing, this is just a random fact, which I thought you would think is interesting, because everyone knows, if you're in my class, that what I really love in writing is to have you write it and then write it again and then write it again. And that the more times we write and edit and revise, the better the story gets. So one thing I think is really interesting about John MacDonald's story, Hit and Run, that you're reading today, is that he actually published it for the first time as a short story in Good Housekeeping magazine in the 1950s. And then the version that you're going to read was published in the Saturday Evening Post as a short story in the 1960s. And by then he had changed some parts of the plot, the names of some of the significant characters, and had really developed it into something bigger and better. And I love that, knowing that about this, because I think good writers are always interested in improving. And so what you are going to read is the improved version that came out about a decade after the original version. And I wonder what you guys will do with the writing that you're doing now, 10 years from now. You have 2 other assignments for today. Remember that you're continuing to work on spelling in your grammar books. That's our unit right now, the spelling skills. So you're going to be going into the next couple of lessons. I did notice that there were a few words that may not be familiar to you, new vocabulary words. So if that's the case, especially since you're all learning online, do take the time to Google and dictionary.com and find out what those words mean, because part of being a good speller is understanding meaning so that you can make guesses about those things. And then finally, in your vocabulary book, you're going to be doing a lesson today called From Noun to Adjective. This is really similar to the lesson that you did yesterday. Yesterday, your lesson was about how you can change a verb, an action word, to a noun and back and forth. And so today you're going to be thinking in the same way, how can one word or one root be in some cases a noun and in some cases an adjective? And some of the examples that they give are venomous. So a spider or a snake has venom. And that's a noun. It's a thing that a spider or a snake has. But if you use venomous to describe a spider or snake, a venomous spider or snake, then the word becomes an adjective. So what you're going to do as you go through your lesson is look at some of these words that are sometimes nouns and sometimes adjectives, and see how you can use that same root to communicate something different. Hope you guys are hanging in there. Would love to hear from you, so do feel free. Thanks for those of you who sent notes on email or comments, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.